As we said earlier, plans for a major redevelopment of the former Visteon factory in West Belfast have been submitted by the Housing Association. Fold Housing proposes to build 244 homes, a community centre and a business unit or more at the site in the Finnegy area. Just under 200 of the homes will be for social housing, while the others will be classed as private affordable housing aimed at first-time buyers. Not everyone is welcoming that development. Joining us now is Claire Callaghan from the Visteon Regeneration Group, SDLP councillor Tim Atwood, Paul Maskey from Sinn Féin and Anita Conway from Fold Housing. We've got a full round table. Let's go to Anita first of all. Tell us about the plans.
Thank you very much. Well, as you said, it's plans for 244 new homes, community facilities, amenity space and workspace, up to about 40,000 square foot of new workspace. So Fold are very, very excited to be part of this here, to be part of the regeneration of the former Visteon site that has lay dormant and vacant for the last 5 years. We have purchased the site in June of this year, and we have undertaken a lot of consultation during that period, and we submitted our plans in early December.
So, as I say, Claire Callaghan is from the Visteon Regeneration Group. Not necessarily happy about these developments, are you?
No, I think I've lived in the area for a long time, so we always naively always thought that the Visteon site would always remain for employment, and that would be long-term employment in the area. I mean, 10 years ago, the Visteon site had, six to 900 employees working on the site. And even though we've been in an economic downturn, a global economic downturn for the last number of years, doesn't mean that that site can never be regenerated again. And once we put houses on that, it can never be regenerated again. And that's what we're saying. We think it needs to be kept for long-term employment in that area.
What would you like to see?
We would like to see long-term employment brought into the area.
Some business units in this?
Well, not business units are very small. I mean, if you look around the area, you'll see a lot of small business units that aren't even rented or being taken available off at the minute. We need something bigger than that.
Like a business park of some kind?
Well, something that will bring in numerous investors and provide long-term employment for a lot of the young people around that area.
Tim Atwood is here as well, SDLP councillor. Where do you stand on this, Tim?
Well, the two biggest issues facing West Belfast at the moment and for the last number of decades has been the issue of trying to create jobs, sustainable jobs, and also the issue of housing, because the waiting lists are so vast. But what's important about this site, as Clara said, it has been an economic site. It's been a site for decades that's provided sustainable employment for many people in West and other parts of Belfast. And the concern that we have is that you have to get the balance right. And there's not that many sites left in the West that are available for economic development.
Does this proposal get the balance right?
Well, that's the question. There is a responsibility on Fold, and obviously they have a responsibility for housing, but also they have to work within the planning guidelines. And obviously the planning policy state that there should be a very significant economic footprint on this site. I think that we need to maximise that economic footprint. What better way to showcase West Belfast as you drive in the M1 by having an economic site maximising jobs and investment for West Belfast and the broader Belfast. As you drive in, when you drive past further past Kennedy Way industrial site, you've Delta Print on your left, which is a showcase for West Belfast in terms of creating sustainable jobs and is about to invest further. What better way is ensuring that we have the right balance in the site with jobs at the forefront?
On the basis of the plans that you've seen, do they get the balance right?
Well, again, I think there is an argument around the issue of what Fold mean by commercial. I think this was an industrial commercial site with jobs through Ford and then Visteon. And I think what Fold have in place at the moment is more small commercial social enterprise. I do think our ambitions must be much greater, that we can actually maximise the site for industrial commercial investment. You know, I've been talking to other businesses in there, like Delta Print. What would they like to see on this site to attract inward investment in the future? And there's a responsibility on the other government agencies. And I think the residents group have put forward a very ambitious programme in terms of how we get Invest NI, DEDI and other government departments keyed in and engaged about how we develop the site for jobs and economic development as well as housing.
So obviously Anita Conway is championing this development. Claire Callaghan has serious reservations. Tim Atwood, I think, as you can hear, has some serious questions to ask about it. Paul Maskey from Sinn Féin. Hi, Paul.
How you doing?
Where are you on this?
Well, I mean, there is no doubt that we need to create more employment opportunities in West Belfast. This site was a massive employer, and I mean, you know, all the political parties in West Belfast at a particular time fought to keep the Fistian site in operation, but we all lost that battle to globalisation. And I do believe is that we have to look at the serious issue of addressing the housing shortfall within this part of the city. Over 3,000 people are on the housing executive waiting list to get a house. They're living in crowded conditions, they're living in hostels, and people are genuinely crying out. The majority of people who come into our offices will be coming because they want to have a house.
So 244 new homes, that will help. That ticks that box.
There's no doubt, and I think it will help it, and it will tick that box as well. What I do think is that we could be a wee bit more generous with regards to employment opportunities on this particular site.
What do you understand these business units to be about? I'll ask Anita to give us the details in a minute, but what do you think they're going to do?
I mean,
what's going to be there?
Well, I know that Fold have been consulting with some of the local social enterprises within West Belfast, the likes of Ordis and stuff, to seek ideas and to seek advice, because Ordis itself, which is the business park within West Belfast, is almost full. In fact, it is full, and it's really
been very successful. Yeah.
So Fold have been engaging with them, and I've asked Ordis questions as well on what could be seen there. I've asked for a meeting with Infest NI with regards to general issues in West Belfast again, and I will be seeking their advice on what could be going there as well. Because what I want to do as the MP for West Belfast, William, is to ensure that we maximise the employment opportunities in West Belfast and reduce the housing waiting list. So it is about getting that balance. So I will be seeking advice to try and find out how we best maximise both on that issue, because it is important that we create the employment, and it is important that we create housing opportunities for people to live in, because it's very, very severe, the housing waiting list within West Belfast. Well over 3,000 people are on it. Well over 3,000 people are crying out to get a home because they are living in crowded accommodations. And I've been talking to a number of people who really have been on the housing waiting list for many, many years now, and it's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for family life, and they need to get on that, I suppose, on the property ladder by getting a house of their own instead of living in crowded accommodation. Let's
put all that to Anita Conway from Fold Housing. Obviously, you're getting a lot of box ticks for the social housing aspect of this. The big question being asked by Claire and by Tim and by Paul is about these business units and the commercial opportunity here. Are you exploiting the commercial opportunity properly? What will these business units contain?
Well, what we're hoping to do with the development that we've proposed is that the business units as we've developed them can be very small or can be developed into larger single units. So we want to make sure that we have flexibility so that when we can encourage people in, that we can make sure that they are let and that they are sustainable. What the association is going to do in the new year is to employ someone whose job will be solely to try and make sure that we can bring in commercial opportunities. We have been speaking to a lot of the agencies, as the other people have just said, and we are looking to make sure that what we develop here is mixed, is sustainable, and works for the whole sites. What will it look like? Well, it'll depend what is actually needed. At the minute, there's very little need. That site has sat there for 4 or 5 years with nobody interested in it from a commercial or from a manufacturing.
They just a couple of convenience stores.
No, it won't be that. And
we need employment opportunities.
Yes, and that's what we intend to do. Now, what we're saying is there's short-term opportunities from the construction. We think there'll be 300 to 400 jobs that will be created through the large scale of construction. There'll be apprenticeship.
Those jobs
they will be 3 to 4
years.
Finished, that's correct. But what we would then hope is that when Vistian closed at the end, we think there was about 200
and you're going to bring construction people in, aren't you?
Well,
we will necessarily going to employ the people in the local area.
Well, we will obviously put it out to tender as we have to. There will be some benefits for local. We will be encouraging through apprenticeships and through local employment schemes that we will do that.
No guarantees.
We can't give any guarantees, but we will certainly be pushing that. What we will say that we're doing is, once we've finished the development with facilities management, that we will look to local employment. We will give that assurance that that's what we will put as a priority. What we will then say is, if we can get the right people in for the commercial units, for the employment opportunities, that there will be the sustainable development, the sustainability employment opportunities.
It doesn't sound like a plan, it sounds like optimism.
No, well, I disagree. I think
what's the strategy?
The strategy is that we will develop this whole site so that it's a sustainable site for...
Yeah, but those are just words, Anita. A strategic plan means you've got a goal, what kind of organisations, what kind of agencies, what kind of commercial ventures you're talking to that will go in there? What is the strategic goal?
Well, it's going to be a mixed. It's not going to be one. We will look, obviously, we're trying to see if we can secure anchor tenant, and we have been working with commercial, private organisations to see if we can. Now, obviously,
who are you working with?
We obviously, that's very early stages, and we're working with other private developers because it's about making sure that they're built. It's also then seeing if there's employment opportunities for some social enterprise. So it's a mix. It's not just going to be one fix that fits everything. It will have to be a mix to make it sustainable and make sure that it works.
And you say in your press release that residents have indicated that they are completely against residential development. They've raised a number of non-planning concerns during the public consultation, but that those matters, quote, cannot be afforded any weight in the planning process.
No, I think what that has said is that any non-planning issues will not be considered, but obviously the local community...
What does that mean, non-planning issues?
If there is issues that are not within the planning remit, then they would not be considered when the planners are making
So
their
is the
decision.
concern that it would be a commercial venture that will create jobs, is that a planning or a non-planning issue?
That would be a planning issue.
So that's relevant.
Yes, yeah.
But if people are concerned about flooding residential areas
That's all relevant.
That's relevant.
Yes.
I'm finding it difficult to find a concern we're talking about that isn't relevant.
Sorry, I just want to say a couple of things here. Fold housing are in the process, are in the process of building houses. That's what they do. They
Yeah, of
build
course.
houses, right?
And we need them.
And we need them. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
And we would make no apology for doing that.
Why
either.
should you? Why should you?
Yeah. So, to get the plan permission for the Vistian site, there had to be a commercial part of that site was kept commercial. Well, our objection is that 6 units of a size of that site. For 6 units, and the majority of the site, I would say about 90 to 95% of that site will be housing.
Is that right?
No.
What percentage would you put
There
on?
would be about 20% is going to be for a commercial workspace, a community. 15% of it's open space, and the rest, then there's roads, and the rest of it will then be for housing. So probably
20% commercial.
Yeah.
I don't even think it would be that, because they're talking about square footage. So square footage of single units first of all, and they're talking about expanding those. So what we'll do is we'll put another flight or another story above another unit. We think that this site should be maintained as a completely commercial unit. Yesterday the BBC ran a programme about young people and suicide rates of unemployment. And we think that that's one particular area. This is a very unique site. It's not like every other site that is around West Belfast. This has always been a commercial site, and it should be remained as that.
So no social housing at all? What about all the social housing needs?
We're not saying about social housing. We're saying no housing should be put on that
No
site.
housing?
No housing on that site. That's a commercial
There's a
site.
desperate need for housing there,
But there's a
isn't there?
desperate need for employment. Maybe it resonates with me more because I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old who are now talking about going to the States or wherever else. So, and I also do a lot of voluntary work and see a lot of young people heading away. I don't want that to happen. This is a very unique site that should be used for employment and employment only, and not residential. We already lost the Bath site on the Glen Road, which provided housing. There's also now proposals that from Hannistown to West Belfast is going to be more housing. So what do I have? Do I have West Belfast just is going to be a complete housing estate from one end of it to the other? And what do? You drive into the city, or you come back out? This was an employment site for a long, long time, which employed a lot of people. It should be zoned as an employment use. The infrastructure there, we don't feel can cope with that amount of houses.
All right. Let's put that to Paul Maskey. Paul, you obviously hear a lot of objections here from Clare, who represents quite a number of people, residents in the area, who think this should just be for employment only, no housing.
No, and there's no doubt, and everybody will have their concerns. I've met with the residents in December, but I meet with constituents every single day, and we do need housing. I mean, I've raised the point with Invest NI in the past.
You need housing, but does it have to be on this Vistian site?
Well, I mean, Invest NI, for example, have a number of pieces of land across West Belfast. I mean, if we're looking at Invest NI to bring employment opportunities, then they need to be ensuring that they do it on their own land, because Invest NI have told me they're not looking to buy any other pieces of land. So it will become almost impossible to fill that site up with commercial and employment opportunities for its entirety. But it's worthwhile pointing out that there was over 300 apartments plan and application was put in before, there was one objection to it. Now, that was for private developments. That was on a part of that land where over 300 apartments on it, with only one objection. Now, what I would like to see that land developed as a site where it's creating social housing for many residents within West Belfast, but also let's look to ensure and let's work to maximise the employment opportunities which we can get in that particular site, because I think it can be done well if both are on that particular site.
And what we're talking about, Tim Atwood, is giving 20% of that site to commercial possibilities.
I think
is that enough? Is
I
that
think
the
that's one of
balance?
the concerns, because clearly they have to get the balance right.
Is 20% enough?
And under planning guidance, and Nita will know this as she goes through the process, planning will insist upon a significant economic footprint on this site. And I don't think 20% is good enough.
What would significant
Well,
be?
again, in the previous application was 50%.
50%.
Obviously, now it's a slightly different application. But I think there's an important point here, a broader point, and Claire's touched on it. There is no doubt there is a need for social housing in West Belfast. We know the stress of people on the waiting list. We see it every day of our lives in West Belfast. So that is a big issue. But there's also a need to create jobs. And, both ourselves and Sinn Féin constantly lobby Invest in I, Derry and other agencies to ensure we get jobs into West Belfast. The danger is, but we've already lost a site called the Glen 10. Bass Ireland Caffrey site is closed down. That is going to be a major commercial residential development over the next 25 years, providing badly needed housing. Where else is there left in the city of West Belfast for economic development? If we lose this site, it's gone forever. There is other sites, but Invest in I have shown no ambition on those sites either. The City Council have taken a lead with an enterprise park in the Springvale site, and we need to see more ambition. Fold have a responsibility for housing, but they own the site. They equally have a responsibility to develop that. But that's a partnership with Invest in I, Derry and other agencies to ensure that we don't become a dormitory part of West Belfast, that there is sustainable jobs as well as badly needed housing.
Paul Maskey, do you agree with Tim Atwood that 50% should be the figure we're looking at in terms of economic development on that site?
Well, I suppose it works out. I mean, it all boils down to what's going on, whether it's 20% or whether it's 50%.
Big difference.
We have to ensure, it is certainly, but we have to ensure that we maximise the amount of people who get employment opportunities on it. So it depends what type.
Well, if you wanted to maximise that, then you'd go with Claire, wouldn't you, and just make it an economic only site?
Okay, but you could have it. You could have a site with 50% of it for commercial and industrial, which could employ 5 people. Now, is that what we want to see? But you could have 20% of that site, which could employ 100 people. So, I mean, it all depends on what type of industry we're looking to put in, and that's why it's important to consult with Felix Invest NI and make sure that they're doing their job to try and get investment into West Belfast. And it is important that Fold continue on with their research, and they're employing this person in the new year, I suppose now, is that to take forward and to see exactly what can go on that site with regards to industrial use. Because it's not about the size for me, it's about maximising the amount of people who can get employment opportunities on the old Fistian site.
Well, can I just say
Go ahead,
as well, Paul was saying there that the previous planning application on that site was for 240 apartments or whatever. The planning application originally for that was for about 240 apartments, but that was on less of a third of the site. So 2/3 of that site still remained as a big economic and commercial development. So it's not as if because there was planning permission there before. And with regards to there being one objection, I didn't even know the land had been sold or bought on. So people in the area didn't even know about that at that time. So it wasn't as if everybody knew about it and we could object to it, because it was really, everything was put in the dark. And I'd also say that in the last 5 years there's been an global economic downturn.
Yeah.
So how can you bring in economic business to an area where there's been economic downturn throughout the world? That is now going to reverse, and it's going to start to change. And once that site is completely gone, it can never be redeveloped again.
So it comes down to this, Anita, if you are going forward with this, with 20% for economic development, how many permanent ongoing jobs do you think will be based there?
We think, I think in the environment that we're working today, there's going to be very, very few large-scale projects like the Vistian site coming back in. It isn't something that happens very commonly now. So you're looking at different maybe opportunities, employment opportunities. So
what number are you working with?
We would think that we would hopefully be able to gauge somewhere around the 200 unit, 200 people.
200 new jobs?
Yeah, if
rolling
we develop
jobs,
those,
not
yes,
just temporary
yes,
construction jobs, but
that's
rolling
what we would
jobs.
hope. Somewhere 150
And
to
will
200.
you be talking to the residents to resolve some of their concerns?
We
about this?
have been talking to the residents from July. We will continue to talk to the residents. We have a meeting planned on Monday with them. I think we're just waiting for confirmation. But we will continue, and throughout this process, we want to engage. We're going to be here for the long term, so we want to continue that engagement with the local community. We realise there should be some difficult conversations that we have, and we don't always agree.
Well, you want to be welcome when you do that.
We do, but we also want to continue those negotiations and try and get them to appreciate and for them to see where we're coming from, and we hopefully can take some of their...
20 seconds.
I
Sorry,
think it
Tim.
needs to be slightly disingenuous because what she's talking about is small commercial. You know, it's social enterprise schemes. I think what you see in the science park is you can maximise job opportunities with future big investments. They don't have to be big companies, but they can be big investments.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but we will return to this. It's a big issue.